As a mountain guide, you see mountains one way, and then as an artist, because climbing and guiding and just being in the mountains is such a strong part of my life, you can't help but express it. The things that I see in the mountains which differ from what other people might observe would be wild lighting and really dramatic shapes, or the depth of the color, or the intensity of the colors that you see. And those things I notice because as an artist I use shape and color and shadowing and tone, and I put that in my art. It just comes out in my art because I look at mountains that way. My name is Diny Harrison, and I am an internationally certified mountain guide. In 1992, I became the first woman in North America to become an internationally certified mountain guide. As a present-day guide, I certainly feel a connection with the guides who were here before. And I think with the tradition of guiding in the Canadian Rockies, a guide today can't help but feel some connection because there are stories and photographs, and it's a really fascinating group of people to have the opportunity to be somewhat connected with. Every year, the International Federation of Mountain Guides Association has an annual meeting. The UIHM delegates meeting was hosted in Canada for the first time, and there was a celebration of 100 years of guiding in Canada, and there was a lot of guests of honor who were invited to attend, and one of those was Petrig. Petrig is the last surviving Canadian Pacific Swiss guide. He is an amazing guide.
I just like the mountains and I like the nature. I started out to look after the goats for 7 years, and that's where I became a climber. And then I said to myself, maybe I should be a mountain guide. That's the way I started out my career. But as a guide, to take the lead of a party, to secure that lead, that was the most difficult thing. Not the difficulty as the mountain. It was to bring the people on the top and safely back to the town. That's for a guide the most difficult thing. Well, last time I was here was in 1953. It's 44 years ago, you know? That's a long time ago. Yes, it's a long time ago. And I'm glad to be here. I was here 4 years here, 4 summers, climbing around in big areas, all the way to Chatsworth. This was the Swiss guide's cottage. Yeah, we had some parties. 1st of August, you know, National Day in Switzerland. We had a big party in there. Well, you see, I'm not a young lad anymore, so you never know what's going on with me. I even don't know myself. I tell you something. Only that one upstairs, he knows what's going on with me. And I believe he always is with me, so what he says, I'm doing. And to see how he developed the mountain climbing, it's fantastic, you know. It's quite a new generation, I would say so.
Peter Sarbach was the first professional mountain guide in Canada. He came to this country in 1897 and led a group of international climbers up Mount Lefroy and Mount Victoria. The birthplace of Canadian mountaineering is really the Rogers Pass in Glacier National Park in British Columbia. Rogers Pass was fundamentally of great importance in Canadian and even in North American mountaineering. The Canadian Pacific Railway came through Rogers Pass in 1885. They began construction on a hotel which they called Glacier House. In order to promote tourism in the Canadian Rockies, the Canadian Pacific Railway brought certified Swiss mountain guides to Canada in 1899. The first Swiss guides that the Canadian Pacific Railway brought to Canada were stationed at Glacier House. These guides were Edward Foyt Sr. and Christian Haessler Sr. The first Swiss mountain guides to actually settle in Canada were Edward Foyt Jr., his two brothers Ernest and Walter, Christian Haessler Jr., and Rudolph Aemmer. They came to Canada in 1912 with their wives and settled in Golden, British Columbia. Arguably the greatest of all the early mountain guides was Conrad Kain. Conrad had 4 rules for the mountain guide. His first rule was the guide never shows fear. The second rule is that the guide always keeps the weakest member of the party close to them. The third rule is that the guide must be able to roar like a lion when safety is being compromised. And finally, the guide must be able to tell a convincing white lie when necessary. Conrad Kain's greatest mountaineering achievements were Mount Robson in 1913 and Mount Louis and Bugaboo Spire in 1916. When he climbed Bugaboo Spire and went to the summit, he was not certain how he was going to get off the mountain when they came back down. It appears as though the Dulfer-Sitz rappel technique had not reached North America. In fact, in his book, he confides that he did his best to hide his apprehension and fear on the summit. He was forced to descend by wrapping the rope around his arm and around his leg and pinching the rope between his feet. The standard set in 1916 by Conrad Kain was not surpassed for decades. Conrad Kain was not only a great mountaineer, he was a great soul. He was a great human being. He was loved by his friends and noted for his great sensitivity. Conrad Kain married late in life and settled with his wife in Willmar, British Columbia. He and his wife were devoted to each other, and when she died suddenly, he died not much more than a year later. That was in 1934. He was only 51 years old.
Well, Edward Fuez is one of the Swiss guys that came over in 1901, I think. And his father was here before him. And I had the opportunity to spend 2 summers with him in Lake Louise as a guide. Yeah, Edward made more than 91st ascent. I had a great respect for Edward, but he was also a proud man, you know. Edward, he always thought he was the best. Maybe he was, you know, but there were many good ones. And I made a film on him, which I had a tough time convincing them to do it, but I'm glad I did it. It was a very nice little film on a man that said goodbye to the mountain. You know the pinnacle on Abbot Pass? He climbed up there, he was 82. 82, he climbed up with his nail boots when he stood up on top of that pinnacle. And you know what he did? And I couldn't keep a tear off my eyes. He said, goodbye Hungabi, goodbye Wenchemna, goodbye Biddle. He named all them all. He said, goodbye to the mountain. This is the last time I'll see you from this point. And this is what That's what the mountain man is. You know. My name is Bruno Engler. I have a middle name, Robert, but nobody calls me Robert. Everybody calls me Bruno. I was born in a mountain environment, so therefore all I know is mountain environment. And I always used to run in the mountain for peace. I found peace and I found myself. I got out of the confusion. I became myself again. The mountains are a living thing to me. My father was a photographer, so he cannot talk me in go to photography school and then also for my apprenticeship. But I didn't want to be a photographer, I want to be a mountain guide. I was a little bit, what they call it, frustrated guiding, because to take picture, to wait for the proper time, just sit there and wait till the light is right. I had to guide, and I knew that, but it was a battle in me between photography and my duty as a guide. And of course I did my duty as a guide, but I told my people, this is beautiful, you take the picture. They had camera and let them take the picture. And they wrote me back to me and said, Bruno, thanks for the advice, I got a beautiful picture. So that also I passed on as a guide, you know, and that's what you're supposed to do as a guide. You're supposed to show the people a little bit of everyday beauty of the mountain, not just there to be paid to climb per a summit. If you don't get up, so what? When I was young, I didn't have the patience, but now I'm older. In fact, my wheels are, my bearings are out, and I cannot go too far, so finally I can sit down and watch this and set up my camera and take the picture at the right moment. With my opinion, I think it's the right moment. I don't do picture for selling, I do picture for myself, really. If I can sell, I'm fine. And the people I climbed and saw, lots of them passed away now because, you know, it's been 50 or maybe 40 years ago. But the amazing thing that their family or their sons or their wives or their survivors still write to me. Even if you don't see each other for years, but the memory stays. The memory of that moment that only the mountain can give you, because it's in a place of adventure, of an adventure that you do together. And that's the reward for a guide, really, not the pay. That's what the guide is more happy about, being remembered. The pay, of course, is a necessity, but to be remembered is much more.
My name is Leo Grillmair. I was born in Austria. In 1960, I became a professional guide. My greatest decision ever was to talk Hans into coming to Canada with me. And it was just adventure. We were young and you know, we had no idea what we were getting into.
My name is Hans Gmoser, and I've been working as a guide since 1953. Leo Grillmair and I grew up in the same town. It was Leo's idea to come to Canada. The minute he told me about it, I said, I'll come with you. Well, Leo has certainly been my most dependable friend. When the chips were really down and you needed somebody, the one guy I knew I could always turn to was Leo. I've always been fascinated with the mountains, and there was always this desire to go to the mountains. I mean, initially, I considered myself a mountain guide, foremost a mountain guide, as opportunities presented themselves. And I even find saying opportunities a little blasphemous almost, because I still could not imagine eventually having lodges from the Bugaboos up to the Caribous. It almost sort of happened in a subconscious way, I think. My very first client that I took from Sunshine to Assiniboine, he had a small movie camera along. And Fred Haessler, which is his name, is still alive today at age 97. With Fred's camera in '56, we'd taken some more skiing footage in Little Yoho. So in the fall of '57, Fred helped me edit this 1.5-hour film called With Skis and Rope. Here I had this 1.5-hour film. I recorded some music to it. I wrote a narration for it and sold myself as a movie lecturer. Actually, the biggest crowd I had in Salt Lake City, a crowd of 5,000 people. And even went to Europe in early '58 and showed it over there. Obviously, if you don't know what the consequences are, it's very easy to be brave. And I just took this film, which no matter how charitable you want to be, it was just a plain old homemade film. But still, people were excited by the beauty of the country, by the remoteness and emptiness of the country, that you could ski in places like that, slopes where there was only one track and nobody else in sight. When I started the ski touring in Little Yoho, I needed somebody to help me, and well, the person I turned to was Leo. So we started these climbing schools, and that was purely patterned after what the Brits did in the UK, which they called mountain holidays. We had started out by calling these weeks Canadian Mountain Seminars, but then I thought Mountain Holidays is a much better name, and we called it Canadian Mountain Holidays. The first time I saw the Bugaboos was in the summer of 1952, but for one reason or another, I just never got around to going to the Bugaboos until the summer of 1959. To put it mildly, I was really blown away, first of all by the spectacular setting, by the vitality of the country, the rushing creeks, the lush vegetation, the big glaciers, really rugged terrain, and then these beautifully, clearly chiseled mountains towering above it all. The country just seemed to expand, and every place I looked, I saw more places to ski. And from then on, I knew that this was a fantastic place to ski. And coincidentally, I had a group of skiers who wanted to come out ski touring, but would like to use a helicopter for 1 or 2 days during the week. I thought, boy, this would be the place to do it. April of 1965, we offered 2 weeks of helicopter skiing in the Bugaboos, and I was so embarrassed about the cost of it. When they said, well, what's a week of helicopter skiing? I was afraid to tell them that it cost $260. Well, initially, Canadian Mountain Holidays started with 3 guides. Now, I think for this coming season, CMH will have something like 90 guides. Well, in my early days, I don't think I could have imagined Canadian Mountain Holidays the way it is today. It was again one of those things where I just haven't looked back. In fact, this was the one thing where the growth and the interest and an enthusiasm for was so explosive, it completely overwhelmed me.
My name is Tim Auger, and I'm a National Park Warden and a Public Safety Specialist. I became an internationally certified mountain guide in 1974. What we call a Park Public Safety Program, which includes the search and rescue business, is part of the Warden Service. So all the staff have a responsibility and participate in various aspects of emergency response in the parks. In 1955 and 56, there were two very serious accidents in the mountains in Banff National Park. As a result of those accidents, the Park Service decided that it had to have an in-house mountain rescue service, and they hired Walter Perrin. Walter Perrin is a legendary figure in the Warden Service. Walter was a Swiss mountain guide who came to Canada in the 50s. He was given the rank of Chief Warden so that he could supervise people that he was taking out. And he set about to build what we call a public safety program from scratch, taking these people, introducing them to mountaineering and introducing them to rescue skills. Walter Perrin was a brilliant climber as well as a guide. And in his hometown of Zermatt, as a youngster, he was actually known as the Spider of Zermatt because of his inspirational rock climbing ability, which wasn't really that common in those days. The involvement of professional mountain guiding with the Warden Service began with Walter Perrin himself, and for 10 years he was the professional mountaineer retained by the Park Service. There are now 6 full mountain guides working for parks in Western Canada. Mark Ledwidge is my associate. He's a full mountain guide, works in the public safety program, and he's also one of the key people involved in the production of the public avalanche bulletins throughout the winter season.
Tim Auger and I have been working together for about 8 years. Our principal duties revolve around providing mountain rescue services, which includes mountaineering training and climbing training, and we spend a fair amount of time as well on accident prevention programs. One of the principal differences between our profession and traditional mountain guiding is that in traditional guiding, the aim is to provide an enjoyable experience to people in the mountains. Whereas with mountain rescue, we often meet people after they've had some kind of unfortunate incident. But fortunately, there's way more incidents where we help people than there is incidents with bad endings. And people, and particularly the media, tend to dwell on the negative, but nobody's talking about the hundreds of incidents, literally, where people were helped and did have a happy ending. One of the interesting things we're finding here, which hopefully is positive, is that use is definitely increasing here in terms of backcountry use and climbing use, but our accident rate is not going up.
Is that point is blocked off up here?
I think that our knowledge and skills as professional guides helps us particularly when we're in dangerous situations, because we have to be able to do our job, but at the same time look out for the other members of the rescue team. That is, in essence, a guide's job. Not only can you travel safely and not slip off, but at the same time, a part of you is always focusing on the safety of the other people around you. I think I've always felt that I have a privileged job. I'm fortunate enough to work in a profession where I can use skills that were developed to do something that I love doing to actually help other people.
So what else can we get off of the analysis? So now we've gotten something about the jet stream off of the analysis. We've seen from the satellite photo, we've seen there's something else there. The jet stream.
My name is Matt Reynolds, and I'm enrolled in the Assistant Rock Guide program, and that's run through the Association of Canadian Mountain Guides. This course has been great. It's been instrumental in helping me figure out different ways of looking at things.
So I need to somehow get a fixed point. that I can catch my anchor.
There's definitely several reasons why you get into the guiding profession. I think certainly the satisfaction and the enjoyment of sharing the mountains with friends and clients is one of the biggest aspects of it. I think that the equipment and the techniques of today do make it easier to guide than the past.
So as soon as you're ready, you can just lean back on the rope.
The basic concept behind it hasn't changed, that's for sure. Client care, especially safety, has always come first. I'm definitely nervous about the final exam, but I think preparation has a lot to do with it. And this course in particular is excellent in allowing us to figure out what we need to work on and to improve on to get to the exam stage. It definitely makes you think about things you've done in the past and definitely how you would change that and do them in the future.
Who knows where mountain guiding will go or where it will be in 100 years. Traditional mountain guiding, taking people up mountains and big peaks, is not as popular, although when you look at the recent interest in the big peaks like Everest, it's a sensationalism that attracts a whole other kind of client. And that's a whole other kind of mountain guiding than what people would have traditionally done 25 years ago. Maybe in the future people will go for the undiscovered peaks. Being part of the tradition of mountain guiding is also to be part of the evolution of mountain guiding. So that makes me part of a new tradition. It's a new era of guiding.